Believe it or not, my very first video in the reemergence of my channel back in 2015, after not making videos ever since 2014, was a video game review of Life is Strange, and believe it or not, I made a glowing review of that game and put it as one of the best games of 2015. What can I say? I was a 17-year-old fanfiction writing, fandom-loving Tumblrite. Now that I turned 19 and I grew older, I realized the many flaws of the games that I like, and after replaying Life is Strange, I realized that it's not too bad of a game. It's not too good of a game either. There are nice things to say about it and nice things that come out of it. I have to admit the cosplays for Chloe are pretty damn hot, but yeah, overall it was definitely not Game of the Year material. I don't know what my squishy 17-year-old brain was thinking that time. Maybe because I have a soft spot for lesbians. And since my opinions have changed on that game, when Dontnod decided to make a prequel for the game, which tells Chloe's story without the time travel mechanics, my reaction was... And I'm speaking this as someone who used to like the game. Maybe the game can offer me something better, but the developer wants to retread the same storyline that was already explained in the original game. I don't see the necessity of bringing this storyline up again, but you do you, Dontnod. However, Life is Strange isn't our main topic of today. Today, we're going to talk about Senpai Notice Me Please once again, I mean representation. Now, I did a little bit of a live stream a couple of days ago in one article about how LGBT game devs apparently have troubles on two things, being noticed and having their games sold. Putting the fact that that's the problem of every game developer who published their game on Steam Direct aside, the article also discussed about the supposed harassment received by one of the game developers. An example of this is the game developers of Your Royal Gayness, which was supposed to be a game about a prince in the Middle East who is gay. One user complained that the game is not exactly authentic, and rightfully so, because they're not exactly friendly with the LGBTs. But the game developers said that it's just fantasy, which is... fine, we're not saying that you should pull the game off of Steam or anything. We just bring a legitimate criticism of why would you choose this setting. And if you choose this setting for the sake of fulfilling your own gay fantasy, I'm not gonna judge. Also, congratulations for having your game greenlit. However, the user who asked this concern responded in a rather snide and insulting way, but not the one that you would consider actual harassment. By this developer's logic, I am being constantly harassed by the virtue that people send me mean comments on the internet. Please, game journalists, help me. Anyway, through this article, I want to ask two questions. One, are the issues that the LGBT game devs suffered the same issues that most game devs suffered? Have you seen the storm that happened in the Shadow of War Steam forums the moment they say that the game would have microtransactions? Good God, the amount of negative comments and people banned, it's just way too much. It's a massive shitstorm. As a game dev, you can be harassed for any reason and probably in a worse degree than just that one comment. I don't think you should make your harassment special just because you're a part of the LGBT. And two, I'm very sure that people who are a part of the LGBT play other games too, right? They're not limited to just games about LGBT people. Hell, I am straight and I play Life is Strange, so if I can broaden my limits, why can't they? Which brings me to our article for today. Why I'm afraid video games will continue to bury its gays. A trope from pop culture can be stopped in games. Bury its gays. Even though Life is Strange is a very successful game and that there are so many games out there that allows you to play as gay characters. Oh sure, they aren't as many as games that only let you play as straight people, but I think it should be expected knowing that LGBT people are not a large part of the population. Life is Strange has done the unthinkable. How did it put a pair of teenage and possibly lesbian girls as its protagonists and still become a popular and seemingly successful mainstream release? I actually asked the same question myself, except I didn't ask the part how games with female protagonists become successful. It has been successful in the past, it is still successful now. The question is, how the hell could 17-year-old me got interested with Life is Strange? Aside from the fact that I was a fandom-loving fanfiction writing high schooler. Well, that's because I think the game looks pretty and it's a narrative-driven game that was cheap on Steam, and I love myself some Telltale-style games, especially when it doesn't look cel-shaded and it looks professionally rendered, so it wouldn't hurt to try. Then I got invested playing it. It was a successful game because at the time, the game looked well made, and it wasn't a bargain price because it was split in episodes. Also, there are so many big Let's Players who play the game, that plays a huge influence in it as well.
While this may seem unlikely just a few years ago, the studio's other title, Remember Me, had trouble finding a publisher due to its female protagonist. The video game industry is slowly but surely becoming more receptive to leading ladies.
Huh. That's actually an interesting story. Back when the trailers for Remember Me popped up, I've had lots and lots of people say that it was a really damn interesting game. It's an interesting game because the game has mechanics in which you're able to modify people's past memories. That is something that we've never seen before. Not only that, the game has a combo builder system that we haven't seen since God Hand, a highly recommended PS2 classic. If the publisher says that the game cannot sell well because of the female protagonist, I'd say bullcrap. On the same year, Tomb Raider 2014 was released and it was one of the most successful games of that time. There are also games in the previous years like Bayonetta, who also did successfully thanks to fast-paced beat-em-up gameplay. Hell, it's still selling well now, knowing that the PC version on Steam was out. We don't even need to go too far. What about Life is Strange's publisher Square Enix? Regardless of your opinion, Final Fantasy XIV has a female protagonist in the front, and it's one of the fastest selling games in the series. There's also Lollipop Chainsaw, which was released a year before Remember Me, that sold millions. So with all of those games with female protagonists, I want to ask, who is the publisher who said such stupid statement? So I went to the article cited to check out who said this, and including the original interview. It all came from the Penny Arcade Report interview with the game developer, and all stems from a dialogue that one of the developers said. They didn't mention any specific names, it's just them mentioning that fact alone, and everybody in the press went nuts over it. I still couldn't find the name of the publisher, not that they should tell me anyway, because regardless of who it is, it's a stupid statement. It is a good decision to have Capcom publish the game in the end because Japanese games are very receptive with women. That says to me the Japanese have done diversity better than you guys, so step up your goddamn game. My point is, whoever this publisher is, they're too stupid to realize that the game has a lot of great potential and lots of players who are interested in the game when the trailer came out and a possible market to buy it thanks to how interesting the game mechanics are. There are some who considers it as one of the most anticipated games of that year, in fact. Unfortunately, the actual game was released and it was meh. It had so much potential, but it was ironically forgettable. Ho ho ho, the Remember Me puns I made in my review. Good times, good times. Also, according to Don't Nod themselves, Remember Me did okay, having digital sales ranging from 1 million to maybe 3. So that publisher, whoever they are, is an idiot.
It helps that Life is Strange featured complex, well-developed teenagers whose character developments do not revolve around a man's affairs.
Didn't you guys forget that Chloe has daddy issues up her butt? You know, Polygon, you praised this game so much, but how come you don't know about that major plot point?
But while the game was one of the few with positive female representation, the same can't be said for its treatment of its LGBTQ characters.
Because, if you guys missed it, Chloe and Max being together, as in together, that isn't canon. If you don't believe me, check out PewDiePie's Let's Play of episode 5, and then check out Cry's Let's Play of the same episode. One of them kissed, and one of them don't. Still, this is a question that I've been asking for so many videos I've made. Why do you guys want to be noticed so much? Now, don't get me wrong, I do like myself some LGBT characters, but it's not a necessity, and I don't think begging for those would make yourself look good.
Unfortunately, the story included purposely ambiguous relationship among the trio. Was Chloe in love with Rachel? Did Rachel reciprocate her feelings? Did Max harbor a crush on Chloe? These feelings were hinted at, but never confirmed.
That question would be answered in the prequel, but as far as I know, Chloe and Rachel are best friends, not necessarily lovers, the same way her relationship with Max is developed. In fact, one of the major plot points in the game is basically how Max is filling Rachel's role in Chloe's life as her best friend. And seriously, if I reread that paragraph again, it really gives the vibe of a Tumblrite feeling sad that her pairing is not canon.
Such queerbaiting, which is the allusion to queer feelings without consummation or even explicit confirmation of the relationship, are often perceived as betrayal of sorts by queer audiences.
Now, I've talked about the concept of queerbaiting in my Sherlock video, but I don't recommend watching that. I've gone a bit too emotional, and that video is old. So I want to revisit some of the older points that I made in there again, and make sure that they're explained in a nicer, more productive way. Polygon linked what queerbaiting really is into Wikipedia, which is nice because that's exactly what I discussed in my last video, and Wikipedia is obviously the most trusted source of all time. After reading out what queerbaiting really is, I come to the conclusion that queerbaiting is basically ship tease for gays.
queerbaiting is the practice, mainly in film or television writing, to hint at but then to not actually depict a potential same-sex romantic relationship between fictional characters. The potential romance may be ignored, explicitly rejected, or made fun of.
Yep, it's basically ship tease except for the gays. It's a Fujoshi mindset. Ship tease is something that even straight people suffer from with their favorite characters. What makes queerbaiting so special that it needs its own term? Well, because LGBT people are oppressed, obviously, and for some reason they decided to call out gay and lesbian alliance against defamation to calculate queer representation?
The media has very little queer representation outside of queer-specific shows such as The L Word or Queer as Folk. According to research compiled by the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLAAD, the 2012-13 television season saw 4.4% of series regulars as queer characters, a marked increase from the statistics from previous years, 2.9% in 2011, 3.9% in 2010, 3% in 2008, and 1.1% in 2007.
Why does a defamation organization need to calculate these sorts of matters? Fictional depiction of characters based on their identities are not defamation. By that logic, Moriarty from Sherlock is defamation against gay people. And yes, some people in the Sherlock fandom made the argument that since Moriarty was coded as gay, therefore that is a terrible depiction of a gay person, which is confusing because I like Moriarty as a villain regardless of whether or not he's gay. As a straight person, I recognize that Moriarty is not representative of all gay people. Whoever thinks otherwise is an idiot. I want to focus up in one point that I find interesting regarding of how queerbaiting can apparently hurt the queer audience.
It can even add up to the point where it hurts the queer audience. Queerbaiting often plays potentially queer hints and references as mere jokes, but if the representations in question utilize humor, are queer people in on the joke, or are they the joke?
That's actually an interesting question to be raised, which brings me to a point that I want to say. When people say that traps are gay, for example, is that statement implying that being gay is a bad thing? Is that statement implying that gayness is somehow associated with negative traits? Isn't that a very homophobic statement if being gay is somehow associated with bad things? Isn't this such a horrendous statement in this heteronormative society? Well, to answer that question, we need to accept for 1 second that we are living in a heteronormative society, which is accurate because being heterosexual is normal. It's the default. It's the majority of the population. Being part of the LGBT is, by your own terms, queer, and therefore derives from what is considered normal. So the word gay in Traps Are Gay is used to make the point that a straight person is gay for liking someone who has the same genitals as them. It's not used as an insult towards gay people. In fact, it's used as a statement of fact. This is not to say that being gay is bad. This is to say, if you're straight, but you love dicks, that makes you gay. It's the inconsistencies where the humor lies. Now, a much better question that should be asked here is, why is a heteronormative society bad when we're living in it and a lot of heterosexuals, at least in the West, tolerate the queers? And here's another point that I want to bring up. Since we're living in a heteronormative society, of course things that people do that are out of the ordinary to their gender are definitely considered unusual. For example, boys in general don't really like knitting or liking cute things, so it's unusual for people to find someone who does that. Is it wrong? No, you do whatever hobbies you want. Don't let other people's opinions get to you. For God's sake, I wrote fanfictions. I went to Tumblr. These are hobbies that teenage women typically do. To answer your question, if the queer people are the joke in these sorts of situations, actually no. Straight people are the joke. Case in point, my favorite scene in Persona 4, where the team is basically on a mock group date, and one of the female slots was filled by a guy, Narukami, because only Chie and Yukiko were there as the women.
Which one of us would you choose for your boyfriend?
Huh? What kind of lame-ass question is that?
Huh? Oh.
Is something wrong, Yosuke?
Very wrong! I don't know what happened, but I think I just went somewhere that I can never come back from. Is it my voice?
Knock it off!
Again, the butt of the joke, as always, is Yosuke, not gay people in general. Anyway, I went a bit off track. I just want to mention that the paragraph about queer people being the butt of a joke was taken from a section called Audience Reaction and Consequences. Here's also another part that I find bizarre.
It also portrays queer relationships as non-existent, only hetero-platonic relationships that were misunderstood. This dynamic is often set up in such a way that the characters and creators must constantly remind us that the queering of their relationship is a joke, or even a perversion of their friendship. Intentionally or not, this sends a message that a gay relationship is not only less interesting, but less deep, less valuable, and less pure.
Again, in a lot of jokes that have something to do with gayness or queerness, the butt of the joke is and has always been straight people. Traps are gay is a joke towards straight people, not towards gay people or even trans. Not a lot of people use traps are gay as a slur towards the LGBT. When jokes that have something to do about gay people exist, it's not weird because it's gay, it's weird because straight people are involved in it. The paragraph also talks about shiptease and how shiptease basically sends the message that a gay relationship is a joke. That's just your interpretation, Wikipedia, and that interpretation is incorrect. A lot of ship teases are on case-by-case basis, meaning that the joke is not the idea of a queer relationship in general, but the individuals who are involved in a joke. Again, the scene from Persona 4 is not that the relationship between gay people are meaningless. The joke is that the characters who are straight are in a gay situation. This is just Wikipedia horrendously misinterpreting a joke, which I shouldn't be surprised that it happens a lot with these sorts of people. Anyway, let's get back to Life is Strange. Wow, what a detour.
Any romance is merely implied and never realized. Plus, the companies involved often get credit for hinting at the relationship by framing it as a positive form of queer representation, but never have to come under any heat by actually showing or even stating an actual romantic relationship.
Yes, you are correct. A lot of romances are implied and not realized. This is called a ship tease. That happens a lot. And if that happens with your characters...
What a shame.
The poster child for this trope in pop culture, Castiel and Dean Winchester from the stupendously long-running teen TV series Supernatural. They often trade longing looks and ambiguously gay quips without addressing any romantic feelings nor acting on the relationship. The fans noticed.
You know, Supernatural made fun of you guys a long time ago.
There's Sam girls and Dean girls, and what's a slash fan?
As in Sam/Dean. Together.
Like, together?
Yeah.
They do know we're brothers, right?
Doesn't seem to matter.
Oh, come on, that's just sick.
Oh, by the way, there are spoilers for Life is Strange in the original article. I'll try to keep this video spoiler-free, or at least spoiler-safe. And while the article warns me about spoilers for Life is Strange, it does not warn me about spoilers of The Last of Us, Mass Effect 3, and The 100, so be careful out there. The article gives a point in how in those previous fictional works, there are gay characters who die. It also went on to show that gay characters are murdered in fiction a lot, ignoring the also many straight people that also die horrendously, but I'll let that slide for now. It also implies that death of queer people in fiction stems from homophobia and the idea of impureness of a same-sex relationship.
It's frustrating to watch the same kinds of stories, coming out stories, love stories, end in death, because writers aren't able to fully flesh out LGBTQ characters like they can heterosexual ones.
I would agree, but that's not a homophobia problem, it's more of a bad writing problem, in which, by the way, if you miss it, romance is a notoriously cancerous trope in Hollywood films. Nobody likes forced romance, straight or gay.
Since the beginning of 2016, more than 25 queer female characters have died on scripted television and streaming services, GLAAD's Where We Are on TV report stated in 2016. Most of these deaths serve no other purpose than to further the narrative of a more central and often straight cisgender character. When there are so few lesbian and bisexual women on television, the decision to kill these characters in droves sends a toxic message about the worth of queer female stories.
What is this about sending a message? The deaths of queer people in fiction can be interpreted in so many ways, and you just so happen to interpret them to mean, oh, gay people die so that straight people can live. I believe that there are more examples of straight people dying so that gays can live. And what's the solution for this? Are you saying that gay people shouldn't die in fiction at all? Or gay people should be better written? If you want them to be better written, you're well aware that characters can be written well even if they end up in death, right? Now, if you say that they should die less, okay, but why? Straight people die all the time in fiction. Why should gay people be the one that has the special treatment?
When those in the queer community, especially the younger ones, only ever see the death of LGBTQ characters in the stories they love, it's hard not to despair. In fact, it is even harder for them to imagine that they can lead better lives themselves.
It's too hard to understand how the Tumblrites feel sometimes, even if I used to be one. I see straight people die all the time. I see characters that I can relate with so much in fiction. A character that resonates with me, they die too. And it also made me sad. It also puts me in despair. Isn't that what death scenes are supposed to do?
Indeed, LGBTQ characters should be treated the same as their straight cisgender counterparts by the rules of their series' worlds, GLAAD's report explained. This means having the same opportunities for romance, nuanced motivation, developed backstory, and the same odds of death.
Wait. The same odds of death? Straight people die all the time in fiction. Straight people can also have terribly written romance and unreasonable motivations a lot of times. Not all straight people are well written. In fact, there is a sizable amount of them that are garbage. Be careful what you wish for. This is a PSA from yours truly to all these Tumblrites. And I think I'm just gonna end here because I figured out the problem. The problem is, you guys don't really know what you want. You guys couldn't really figure out or pinpoint what you really want in the scenario. So I'm going to ask the question to all of you Tumblrites who are part of the LGBT. If you want representation on LGBTQ people to be exactly the same as straight people, then you will also be faced with horrendous romance, unreasonable and horrifying death scenes, poorly defined motivations, and fiction's most horrifying nightmare, bad writing. So next time, I want these people to think for a second about what they want and how you're going to get it before you even open your mouth. Take your time. Before we end this video, don't leave. I have a couple of announcements to make, especially if you're a fan of my content. Very important ones. First of all, huge thanks to Yosho and Ed Vilby for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic. We also have a couple of fan arts here. This Tintin-inspired fan art was made by @CodyJBW. It looks freaking brilliant. And this one is made by @CyberLoveCat. It looks pretty damn cute. If you want to send fan arts, definitely send them via Twitter or through DMs @appabend. One more announcement to all of you guys who want to catch up with my streams. Now I have a consistent schedule. I will do weekly streams at Friday 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to catch up with the streams, I will announce it in Friday morning, 12 hours before the stream. Don't forget to click the bell and the subscribe button and set the stream reminder so that all of you guys can catch up with it and we all can have lots of fun. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.